In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a cohesive mini collage series from the 6 type of collage papers taught in my 6 most recent YouTube art demos. Hello, my name is Catherine Rains. I'm a mixed media collage artist, and welcome to Tune In Tuesday, where I share art demos to expand your mixed media toolbox. If you see value in this video, I would deeply appreciate a thumbs up, and if you would subscribe to my channel below. Links for all the collage papers that I used in this demo are down below. And while you're there, you might also want to check out my free 5-day online workshop, Collage Kickstart, where I show you how to use all the collage papers taught during Tune In Tuesday to make fabulous collages the very first try. So let's get into creating a cohesive collage series from 6 types of collage papers. So I want to expand my Tune In Tuesday collage collection by a couple more collages. So these are the collages I've made so far. And each one of these little tiny mini collections represents at least 5 different kinds of collage papers. So these are 5 different kinds of collage papers that made up these 3, 5, 5, 5. In fact, one of these is 6. I'm not sure, 7. I'm not sure which one is 7. And this is 5. So in essence, I have 27 different types of papers represented with these 11 collages. I want to expand this by a couple more collages. Now, even though all of these collages were made with different kinds of collage paper making techniques, they all look like they go together because they were all made with the same 2 primaries. And this is Phthalo blue-green shade, Hansa yellow light. I also add some white and some black to this just for some variety. So all of these papers were basically made with these 2 colors. So even though I've got very different techniques for each one of these mini collections within the larger collection, they all were made with the same paint colors, and therefore they look like they all go together. And that's exactly what I'm going to do right now with the latest 6 collage papers that I've made in my most recent 6 demos. And these are the 6 types of papers that I'm going to fit into a single collage. So I've got coffee paper, washable glue, scrape paper. This is household item paper. These papers were made with my latest stencil collection, which I'm excited about using them in a collage. And then my latest demo was on crackle paper. So one of the parameters that I'm going to use in creating 2 more collages using something of each one of these piles is that I want to first take each pile of papers and separate out the papers that I'm absolutely crazy in love with, and the ones that I don't like as much will go in a separate pile for later use. So once I separate out, let's say just for the crackle papers, the papers that I absolutely love from those that I don't, then I'll separate them into values, light, medium, and dark. So that I'll have for each one of these 6, not necessarily, I may not have light, medium, and darks in these, but I will have a pile of light, medium, and darks overall. This is probably going to go more into the dark pile since it's black. So I'll only be creating collages from papers that I, 1, love, and 2, that represent light, medium, and dark. Not every single paper, but I have a selection of light, medium, and dark. So my main criteria for making all of the collages within the Tune In Tuesday collection is that I want at least 1 little piece from each technique of paper in every collage. So I've cut 2 pieces of Bristol paper. These are 6 by 6. To create my little mini series with. So to start most of my collages, what I will do is I will go through my papers and pick 1 paper that I'm completely crazy about, like the one I like the most. And this is the one. Love this one. This is a scrape paper. It was done on very heavyweight paper. I think this is watercolor paper probably. And I'm going to try tearing this, although I may need to cut it. But what I want to do is put 1 piece of my absolute favorite paper on both of the collages that I'm going to make. That will be one thing that ties them together, in addition to the colors and the fact that I've got the same technique papers on each of the 2 collages. So let me just kind of experiment with picking a piece here. It's very thick, and it's going to create a really lovely tear line there. Let's see, I don't know how big I want this. So I could either, oh, that's really pretty. And I also love this. I think this is the one I'm going to use. I don't know. I like this one too. It's a toss-up. But I'm going to save this one for the second collage. So quick, because I really do love both of them. Now, what I'm going to do, just so that I can see what I've got, I'm going to cut off the white here. I kind of like having that white show, so I'm going to keep it. So now I've got one technique paper down, which is the scrape paper. Now what I'm going to do is look for a contrasting color. So this is kind of medium dark. So I'm looking for something that either a light or a medium paper to go next to it. I really like the coffee paper. Now the other parameters that I usually set for my collages is that I want each one of the papers that I put down to be in a different size. So this one's a long narrow, and I'm going to let it hang off just temporarily. Really like that. Got two papers now. And I'm going to continue going through my stash of papers, which by the way is right above me on the table. You just can't see it. And I'm looking for contrasts. What papers would look good next to the two that I have down there. So I'm going to speed the film up a bit and just play and come along for the ride. And I hope that you get inspired to create a small series for yourself out of the papers that you have from Tune In Tuesday or wherever else you're making papers. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I've got all 6 here. So what I do before I glue this down is I'm looking at each part of this and go, do you love it? Like, what don't you love? And I love these two together. I love this against that. I love these 3 together, and I love this here. I need something to pull it all together, which I'm not sure what it is yet. So I'm going to lift these carefully and put them in reverse order off to the side. So this is the last one that will go down because it was the first one off. Just mark where this little piece of paper is, and that one too. So I think I'm going to glue this piece down first and then cut it off because it's kind of, well, maybe, actually, I think I'll just cut a big chunk of it right now. That'll work. Now, for most of this, I'm going to be gluing with matte gel, mainly because the papers are really thick, particularly this one is on watercolor paper, I believe. So I need a pretty heavy-duty glue to adhere these with. So I just have to spend a little more time when it's really heavy paper to make sure it's really going down. I'm not sure about this ink coming off. Usually I would put a coat of the gel medium on top and then use that to scrape, but this also works just to press really hard, and actually it's done a really good job. Looks like it's adhered well. But I'm not going to cut that off until I've got the rest of the papers on. So in reverse order, I'll put them back on. I'm going to try putting my medium on top of this so I can scrape out any potential air bubbles with my catalyst wedge. This one's now dry, and I realize now that it's all trimmed up, I don't like that these two papers are so close in color. So as a finishing touch, I'll do something to break that up. But meanwhile, I'm going to compose my second one. Now, this is the paper I chose to pull these two together, so I'm going to use this again. But because I use this in a pretty wide piece right here, I want it in a very different orientation this time. So I'm thinking just a kind of a long, thin strip along the bottom is what I'm going to try. So that is where I'm going to start. And put this one aside, and I'll just be referring to it as I compose this one. Now again, I need something in contrast to this dark green. I would like to make it look different than the other one in some way. I don't want the exact same papers, although I do want to use all 6 of those papers in this composition. So again, I'm just going to do what I call auditioning papers against this. Now this one's a risky one only because there is a lot of curl to the back of the paper, but I really, really love it. And it's a beautiful contrast to this. I hear people tell me all the time that they don't want to use their favorite papers because they love them so much, so they want to hold on to them and maybe take a photocopy of them and use, a copy. But the way I see it is that I can always make these papers again and again and again and again. So I actually want to use the papers I love, mainly because it makes the collage I create in the end something I absolutely adore. And why wouldn't I want to do that, right? Again, I have to get contrast now to this and to these things. Like, what am I going to put right here that will be in contrast? So either much darker than these two or much lighter than those two. And I wanted to have different kinds of papers. So I've only got 2, scrape and crackle so far. So my basic design for this collage is now done, and I am loving it. So I decided to glue this off camera as to not bore you with the long gluing process. And I did end up adding one more piece of paper because when I looked at the whole composition, I realized I hadn't put any of the stencil papers on there. So this little strip here is actually from here. And this also brings a little bit of a dark paper in. So I've got dark here, but I didn't have dark anywhere else. So this is a medium, and this is kind of medium and light, and this adds a little bit of contrast, and that's what I'm looking for. Now, when I bring the other one next to it, I'm looking for how can I further make them look like they go together. And because I added a piece there, I thought it might be nice to do something to break this up. Actually, to break this up, because these two papers are a little too close in color for me. So I found this, which was cut off from here. I was kind of playing around with, like, could I maybe make some kind of barrier there? So that's a possibility. But when I put it there, it just felt right because the size of that particular crackle is the same size as that paper. So it just looks like it goes there. And I also want to put a circle. And so I started playing around with different size circles that I already have cut. That could be interesting. I like that right there. And of course I would cut that off. Maybe a smaller circle. On the other hand, there's a kind of like a circle swirl here. So to me, that kind of mirrors it a little too much. Kind of enamored with this because this one looks very different than that. So I think I'm going to glue that one right there, and that one looks finished to me. And here is my Tune In Tuesday collection as it stands today. Here are my 2 new pieces. And it's just amazing to me how even though these 13 collages represent 32 different types of collage papers, they look like they're part of a series. And it's all because of the magic of using 2 primaries, blue and yellow, plus a little black and white for variety in making my papers. Now, of course, my 2 new ones are always my favorite, but the last time I made these were my favorite. And before that, these were my favorite. Truthfully, I love them all. And I can't even imagine parting with them at this point, but at some point I will actually take them and either mount them to cradled boards, which is what my usual way of doing this is, or I'll frame them and I will sell them. But for now, they're living with me as I turn them into small mini-series and put them as part of a large collection altogether. So I challenge you to try something similar. Choose just 2 primaries, make your papers out of those 2 colors, and see what you can create with a limited palette as well as a limited palette of the papers themselves. This is amazingly fun to do and so effective as a collage series. So that's it for this week, and I will see you back here for Tune In Tuesday for another art demo. To learn many more collage making techniques, check out the links that are about to appear right here. And be sure to join my free 5-day online class, Collage Kickstart. The link to sign up is under the word "more" below. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I would be deeply grateful if you would. And I'll see you back here next week for another Tune In Tuesday.